Well, good evening, everyone. I will call this meeting of the Climate Action Planning Committee to order. We have a small but mighty group tonight here for our final meeting of the first 12-month term of this committee. Um, and I would love to get the ball rolling with discussion and approval of the meeting minutes for the May 1st and May 16th meetings. Did everybody have a chance to look those over?
They look good. I think I sent one comment earlier, Alex. Other than that, I'd make a motion to adopt.
And I do think that that was incorporated, but we could just double check before uploading them. So I see a second from Ron.
Second motion, yeah.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Arthur,
Yes.
Maggie,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, so the meetings are, the minutes are adopted. Now, the next agenda item is to discuss a grant opportunity for funding of a sustainability director position. I distributed overview materials. This is the Department of Energy Resources grant called the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant, or EECBG. It was brought to our attention by our liaison at the Department of Energy Resources, who helped with the campaign to adopt the specialized opt-in building code. After the Boston Globe ran an article on the topic of towns with and without dedicated sustainability staff, and where towns that don't have that struggle and what benefits towns that do have them experience. And one of my partners at Mass Energize put me in touch with the reporter who was writing that, because she was looking for somebody to speak to the experience of groups like ours that are doing this kind of work without dedicated sustainability staff. Which, you know, Jack, you're amazing. You've got so much sort of operational day-to-day work on your plate that we just need to clone you 4 or 5 times and then we'll be fine.
Nice.
Right. So, I think this is an interesting grant opportunity. That's not the only use case that it could be applied to. And I also was contacted by Mass Energize a week or two later, which is a 501c3 nonprofit based here in Massachusetts that exists to support municipal sustainability advocacy groups like Sustainable Milton or like a Climate Action Planning Committee, with resources to be successful. And they have digital offerings and sort of community of practice. And something they're trying to get into is helping towns or groups of towns with electrification campaigns and things like that. So they reached out about the same grant, that working with them could be the sort of thing that you would apply for this grant. That's enough of an introduction. I'd like to open the floor for input from the committee.
Well, one thought I had was whether, in fact, our issue with the MBTA would prevent us from getting this grant. I think even if that were true, working on putting it together as an important adjunct to what we're doing. Uh, I think you can, once you have the document created, you can then look at foundations that are interested in climate change and consider going toward a foundation or several foundations, essentially with the same text, so that you can get a lot of use out of it. Is a very reasonable approach to something. So that from that perspective, I think even if there are issues relative to the state funding things for Milton, that's another alternative.
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely valid concern, and I agree with you completely. I just point out that I think these are federal funds that are being administered through the DOER, so that might decrease our disadvantage.
What would be the job is for this first?
That's a great question and something that I think we would have to provide input on.
I mean, would this person, the way the grant is written, be targeted just working on the energy part of the climate action plan, or would they work on everything? What's your sense?
I think I would approach that question by surveying people who hold these roles around Massachusetts to get a sense of that. They frequently have. I've met people over the last 12 months who have the title energy manager who can focus on energy. I've met other people whose title is sustainability manager or sustainability. Where a climate action plan exists, usually it's within their purview to oversee implementation, coordinate implementation. That doesn't mean that they have to be responsible. And one thing that comes up again and again is they do a lot of. So you're looking for somebody who knows the landscape of grants, can apply the best hours of the day to applying for them.
That's good.
And historically, towns that have had these roles have brought in more grant funding than they spend.
Oh, that's
I
good.
think that would be a goal.
Yeah, that's good.
Competition for grant funds is increasing, but I think supply is increasing as well.
So Steve, Falcon has a comment. Should we
Yeah,
open the floor for public comments?
I think we're supposed to wait. I don't know. I don't want to be excessively bureaucratic though. Maggie or Arthur, do you know what the rules are for letting non-members participate
I think
in the
it
discussion?
really, I mean, it's a small committee and I think I know the planning board has allowed input from residents on topics. So I think it's up to us, really.
Arthur, your thoughts?
In the Conservation Commission, we entertain the public, if you will, on specific topics of interest to them as we go through the agenda. So I'd use that broad interpretation.
So it's sort of up to me if I want to recognize folks. All right, then Steve, let's hear from you.
I can wait too, but so I work in Cambridge, and I'm on the Kendall Square Association committee here, and these types of positions are very effective if you have a lot of, at least as I've seen it here in Cambridge, they have a lot of money. And so these positions are utilized to create policy, utilized to bring in money, and to utilize to get projects going. I'm in thinking about Milton, which is not Cambridge. You talked about earlier other use cases for the funding for this particular activity, and so having a person having in this position is a potential in which they can bring grants, they could talk about policy, they can create change versus, being able to fund activities directly through Sustainable Milton or other organizations already here to get something going and get something moving. If we bring in a position like this, it's going to take some time before there's going to be enough resources for them to produce action. So as you're thinking about where you want to go with this grant opportunity, for me, it sort of breaks down to, near term. You want near term, then I would go in a use case of supporting an already established organization to do work in the community. If we're thinking longer term, then maybe having a person who then writes grants or produces other income to be able to do this work.
Arthur?
Just a couple of points. One is if we've been reading the news over the past several days, we see that the legislature and the governor are advocating for the passage of very substantive monies for sustainability and climate mitigation and adaptation, along with related initiatives. So, question at hand is, knowing this in advance, and where the state is planning to go in terms of positioning itself, do we want to capitalize or recommend the capitalization of such a position, the description for which could be broad enough to encompass a host of responsibilities? So we might be able to draw some examples from other states like New York State, which is a very high energy conscious and advanced state in the country, right on the cutting edge. The other thing is, before retiring, I was my organization's affiliate with the Massachusetts High Tech Council, and the whole host of interplays that I could mention in that regard. But one of them is the way in which technology in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is going to intersect with climate and how that is going to relate to the economic sustainability of the Commonwealth on a very competitive basis, knowing full well that we are competing nationally with Texas, California, North Carolina, New York, Pennsylvania, and several other major states in the country. And in order to maintain ourselves, we're going to have the type of human resources in place that would allow us to go for grants, monitor the environment, participate in major legislation that may be passed and signed into law, and be first at the table. If we're not, somebody else will be. And when you're not there, it's very hard to catch up down the road, because relationships are built, applications are in, funds are earmarked. So I'd be very bullish on taking a look at what it is that we could frame out to present to the town along the lines of such a position.
Thanks, Arthur. Yes, Maggie?
So I'm not sure if I missed this or not. How much is the grant for? To pay for a salary?
So, yes, I forget the number. Do you?
I think it's 75.
Yeah, something. And also, it's
75,000.
it's not an ongoing grant. I think if you were to use it for funding a position, the grant application would have to include a plan for how you will fund it beyond 1 year. So that's definitely one of the challenges of using it that way.
Yeah, so that was my question. Of course, I'm all for going for grants, and I think we should apply for any grant. My concern, though, was if there was something tied to it, that we then had to, offer employment after the 1 year grant. I mean, I know, there's been a lot of talk about an override. I'm a little uncomfortable adding the potential for a new position at the risk of then not being able to fund it, or if it is, we have to keep that position, that means somebody else will lose their job who could be here for a longer period of time or has been here for a longer period of time. So I am nervous about that. So I kind of was wondering what kind of strings were attached to that. And also with MBTA zoning, I'm not sure which bucket that this opportunity falls under. As you know, the legislature only voted for 4 grants to be impacted if a town does not have does not meet the zoning requirements of 3A. And then, as you know, the governor, Maura Healey, came and added, 13 more, and that is still up for discussion if she had the ability to do that. So which 4 of the grants that the legislature voted on, do you know that this grant comes under? Is it truly at risk?
I don't know the answer to that. And my perspective was more along the lines of what John was saying, which is that I think there's ambiguity, and anytime you're applying to the state for funding, right now there's the chance that MBTA will affect their decision-making process. But the exercise of doing the research to support writing a grant is probably not wasted effort, if it means that we put some good thinking into, well, what would a dedicated town staff member do? What would the role description be? If that's not something that we can make happen next year, maybe it's something that can happen the year after the year. It might take a few tries, so it's worth getting started.
So I'm looking at the list of inaccessible grants, and this is not listed.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, the impact of the non-compliance would, make us less competitive. But we're not outright disallowed.
Get back to just the long term. I know, like, when ARPA funds were used to hire staff, mostly on the school side. What happened then was that the upper funds expired, and then all of a sudden that position is now kind of going unfunded. So I wouldn't want this to happen. I believe in getting as many grants as possible, and I would hope that anybody that we would employ to get the grant funding, they would actually get enough grant funding to pay for their position. And is there like a stipulation that can be attached under their job description, as if they don't get the amount of funding to warrant, their expense? Do they, is their position terminated because they didn't fulfill their goal of getting enough funding? So I'm not sure, like, again, I don't come from the government side of employment. I'm more private. So I know that, on the private side, when you hire someone, you explicitly say you need to do X amount of dollars, or else, you're at risk, your job's at risk. So I don't know if this can be tied to it, because I'm just concerned about the override issue.
Yeah. I had that same thought, honestly, and I mean, I don't know if that's done in municipal government world. I know that that's done in academia. Bringing this much grant dollars, no tenure for you. Um, so there's certainly some precedence for it. Of course, it creates some incentives as well. So it's something to think about carefully. Yes, Arthur.
You used one of the words I was going to employ, and that is incentive. Very common in the nonprofit world for this to be developed along those lines, and very common whether it's private sector, as was the case with my organization, or the public sector, to have terms of employment identified. For example, term of 1 year, appointment for 1 year, renewal subject to these possible outcomes or conditions, so that everything is upfront, and any good candidate would want to have that information.
Yeah. And I do remember Dylan Patel saying that arrangements for ongoing employment are one of the things they would consider if you applied for that purpose. We would have to address that.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that I read there was some sub grants that were being offered, and that was the 75,000.
Mhm.
The looks like the program outline says that the amount should not exceed $1,634,000. So that's the max amount that would be available.
So, right, I mean, I think there are details to dig through here. And our goal now is just to broach the topic and get thinking about whether and how to pursue this. I think the other option is pursuing funding for something with a finite term, something like a mass energized partnership. And there are precedents for that too. Like I think Milton had a Solarize Milton program in the last decade. It lasted a year or two. It was run by Sustainable Milton, and I don't know what the funding profile of that was, but then it ended. And I would just say I've observed other towns doing this over the last couple of years. And my impression is that it takes a long time to get the ball rolling on stuff like this, because people don't, only a small percentage of residents are thinking about a big home renovation project, say, in any given year. So if you run the program for 6 months, you're not going to connect with a lot of the people who might be interested in doing solar panels or energy retrofits or heat pumps over the next 5 to 10 years. And it takes sort of sustained marketing and awareness raising. So it seems like, there are a lot of work to get going. And then, similar sized towns will do, double digits, low triple digit projects. And then they're finishing the program, and they're kind of losing some of the momentum they've built up. So that biases me towards looking for some sort of long-term ability to keep focus on these issues in a sustained way. Sustained.
So the other question was if the climate plan that is created, what would the next steps be? I'm sort of envisioning like how the master plan for the town was created, 10 years ago. And then it was created, lots of input from the residents. And then a master plan implementation committee was then formed to track the implementation of some of those goals. So once the climate action plan is created, do we then have, an implementation committee? And so they're the ones who are actually in charge, not somebody officially at town hall on staff.
I would definitely hope to see this committee or, a new incarnation of it, around to, assist and advise with the implementation of the plan, whether there's dedicated town staff or not. I think that they will be more successful, with town staff focused on it. I think the, master plan implementation committee has the natural partner of the town planner and assistant town planner. There's less bandwidth, with this one.
Because the committee is sunsetting, I think next year. So it was created for a finite period of time, and now it will be, sunsetting essentially. So is that the same? I wonder, the goal of this will be the Climate Action Committee, Implementation Committee will be for 10 years and then that sunsets. So I just don't know the long-term
I think
vision.
it's hard to answer that question before more work is done to flesh out the approaches in these different areas that we've talked about, energy, transportation. I know I can say more about this, but just in terms of conservation lands piece of this, we had a meeting and I'm envisioning that the implementation of that component alone is going to require some work. And I don't know, I don't, at this point, have a hard time seeing one overall implementation effort, or there might be a supervisory implementation function of some sort, but if work in the energy, transportation, waste management sector parallels what we've been doing in conservation lands, I think you're going to end up with 3 or 4 different semi-major implementation activities.
And I would think some of those initiatives that are, supported in the climate plan would actually then possibly become a new zoning bylaw. So then the enforcement mechanism is through the building department. So, it actually becomes officially adopted.
On the one hand, our charge kind of constrains us to write a plan with a horizon of 30 years. So there's some reason to expect, some version of this will still be going on closer to 2050. On the other hand, we can't possibly, commit, the next generation to to be tackling it in any particular way, 30 years in advance. Write a plan that goes out that far, and then we'll set things in motion for the next 5 years or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just our zoning bylaws were enacted in 1938, and a great majority of them are still in effect. And then throughout all these years, we've had amendments to them so it can be updated to meet current needs. So our zoning bylaws it's a great example of how long a bylaw can remain in effect.
Sure. So any further discussion on this topic? Okay. Let me move us on then to item 4, which is discussion and approval of the June 2024 progress report to the select board. I circulated a draft. And I would like to get your input on any changes to make and get that approved by, this is the last meeting of this incarnation of the committee, so I'd love to get a progress report out to them, summarizing what we achieved this year. So, any input?
I read it real good. I just came from another meeting, so I didn't bring my copy with me, but what I saw was good.
If folks don't have substantive edits they desire, then I entertain a motion to approve the progress report. But I love
that motion. I thought it was fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I second it.
So let's do approve in 9 seconds. Okay. Maggie.
Yes, and I just want to say thank you for writing it.
Yeah,
You're most welcome.
yeah.
I built on Tracy's work, so thank you, Tracy.
That should be in as to how hard you're working.
Arthur.
Yes.
Ron.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right, thank you, everybody. And now I think the next agenda topic is one that I've been awaiting most eagerly. Look to get a summary of the conservation focus group meeting that happened, was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, yeah. Well, in the face of loud, what kind of music was it?
It was Pacific-ish.
Oh, yeah, Asian Pacific rock band or something. We had a good meeting. What we tried to do was to bring the various stakeholder organizations that are concerned about conservation land issues together. So we had somebody from Friends of the Blue Hills, we had the Neponset River Valley Association people, we had the Shade Tree Advisory Committee people represented, and Arthur's Conservation Commission was also there. And what we ended up doing and what we're continuing to do is to get each of these organizations through their representatives to articulate a goal for climate mitigation on the conservation lands in Milton, mostly in the Blue Hills, but Sean McCanty came from the Neponset River Valley group. So each of them, and I've already gotten some of their input, each of them is writing up a short statement of the goal that their work and their approach to climate mitigation in the conservation lands, a goal that they would have, and the baseline information that they would collect as the first step in reaching that goal. And so what we're going to do, I think, is to bring these different approaches together, and each of them are different. For example, Fiona's last name, Javin. Fiona Javin, the Yale person who moved to Milton, has an approach that relies on actually sending in a forester or foresters to look at sampling of trees. The shade tree people are taking an approach that's going to rely on aerial photography, and Google Maps to do a composite picture of the forest, the tree stock in the Blue Hills and elsewhere. And the Friends of the Blue Hills have this project where they are trying to assess the impact on emissions of development circles around the Blue Hills. So each of these groups is going to come in with their own goal, their own approach to baseline. And I think rather than, it's my own thinking, we're going to have another meeting to hash this out, but rather than have one concentrated approach to goal setting and baseline, that I think we're going to try to accommodate all of them within an umbrella of dealing with climate mitigation issues in conservation lands in Milton. And the issues are going to deal with sequestration of carbon, emissions of carbon, and composition of trees and which trees currently exist and what is their potential to sequester carbon, and also the adaptation issues that also relate to what's going on in the Blue Hills, meaning in the overall tree stock, what's our sense of how much dead wood there is, what's the potential for fires and heat and flooding. So that's where we are. Did I leave anything out? No. The folks from the Neponset River Valley Association already have a lot of very good data on carbon issues related to both sides of the Neponset River Valley. Arthur probably knows more about this than I do, but they're going to try to go back, look at that data, and submit their approach to dealing with this issue. So that's where we are.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just want to compliment Ron on running what I thought was a very well conducted and collaborative meeting. It was interesting to see how willing everybody around the table was to come together and be willing to come together again and to do work outside the meeting to contribute to this very important effort.
Yeah,
That's marvelous.
well, it shook my thinking up because I went into the meeting thinking we would have one focused plan, we would get everybody together, but hearing people speak and their body of experience, I mean, it struck me that their experiences and their approaches were different and that we shouldn't really try to force fit everything, but let everybody articulate what they're doing and see if we can create an umbrella under which everybody can live. See if we can do that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me because there are existing organizations in the region that have decades of experience with conservation. I think it's more important for us to, this is a relatively new group. It's important for us to understand what they're doing, and if we can facilitate connections and partnership, that would be a victory. I know the state has goals, certainly to maintain the conservation land that is already present, but also to bring more land into conservation status. And I know that's something that appeals, at least in principle, to lots of people in town. Should keep our eyes peeled for any money
Yeah,
behind those goals.
Yeah.
And I think regardless of MBTA status, I think Milton's got a strong case. We've got very valuable land, potential conservation here in town.
Yeah, two more things. One is that we invited the DCR people to come, but they didn't show up.
Okay.
And there was some aspersions cast about their approach to the Blue Hills, which seems, some people say, is a kind of laissez-faire, just let it be kind of thing. And the second thing is that I am quite cognizant and actually agree with Alex, your position that whatever we do, ideally, we should try to quantify it, to try to have some mitigation goals related to reducing emissions, sequestering carbon. I don't know what that's going to be yet, but I've asked people to address that issue. So, yeah.
And the focus on gathering baseline data seems.
Yeah.
Would anybody else like to weigh in?
Maggie was there, but she was silent, but she might not have been able to hear because of the Asian Pacific rock.
What's that drum? The drum call?
Oh, yeah, the drum, yeah. Their drum, I don't know.
Now I heard quite well, thanks. And again, I was impressed by the breadth of knowledge. I sort of felt, a little intimidated by the knowledge that they each had. And it was just really interesting to watch and listen. And I don't know if it was recorded or not, but I really think this is one of the recordings that should be posted on MATV because I think it is so interesting and from just a wide variety of people and their experiences. So, Ronnie did a great job bringing them all together. So thank you.
Was the meeting recorded?
No.
Okay. But that's true. We don't have, it doesn't have to be a formal public meeting for us to record it.
That's true. Yeah.
We might try to do that next time.
But I might suggest, and it might not be an exact fit, but the idea in some of our other areas, energy or waste management, maybe there are similar stakeholder organizations that have been functioning in these areas and perhaps bringing them together for a kind of focus group might be a good thing to do, but I don't know enough about the other areas to know if I'm talking out of my hat.
I would hope that you would continue to push for cleanup and prevention of fires. And that was certainly one of the things you mentioned, but I think it's a very important one, and I'd like to see it emphasized. But it may be within the context of what you're doing with this. I think it's a really good idea to continue what they're doing, and I'm sure prevention of fires is certainly on their list, so that this can in fact have some traction and movement toward success with it.
Yeah, that issue came up a couple of times, and well, it should be whatever is created, it should be part of it. Yeah, I agree.
And I guess there are fires that are good for a forest ecosystem and not dangerous to humans or their property, and there are fires that are or both those things. And I'd love to better understand what kind of fires we have had or at risk of having in the Blue Hills. I definitely have noticed last summer there were a number of fires that I could smell in my neighborhood, but they seemed not terribly dangerous. What's that?
They may have been, yeah,
No, they were actually fires in the Blue Hills, your Facebook live video feeds. Of people standing right next to them because they were not, I mean, maybe they're more dangerous than they looked.
There was
Um,
There was one earlier this year, and it is a little bit unfortunate. I think, arson has been, you know, been responsible for it. So I pay attention. I'm here right in the Blue Hills, and like Alex, you can smell it. Very,
There's more than one last summer. There was definitely a largish one up by the Chickatawbit Overlook, on the other side of Chickatawbit. But I've also seen, like, those didn't spread that widely, and I've never seen like neighborhoods were at risk. And I have seen a climate risk tool that rates, at the housing level. It's called riskfactors.org. At the individual property level, it rates you on flood risk, wind risk, fire risk, heat index risk, and throughout Milton, it sort of rates wind damage and well, I don't remember specifics, but it rated wildfire risk low in Milton, but I don't know why. Can we trust that tool? I don't know, it's just anecdotal.
Some people who have lived here for a long time recall that there used to be a fire station in the Blue Hills that could respond, and they took it down, and now people are saying it takes a while for firemen to come from wherever, Quincy, Milton.
and I can attest to the average wind speed, here at the nursery, it's 15 miles per hour. And I come in the mornings and my plant material is all blown over. We have basically a wind tunnel. So a fire in the Blue Hills can be a little scary because we do have a wind issue.
Yeah, and the risk may not be uniformly distributed around town. Right? There could be specific spots where some mitigation would be more valuable. Great. Any other comments on this topic? Ron, thank you so much for your work to push this along. It's a big one.
Start,
Yeah.
just to start.
Now, the next topic is an update from the Transportation Working Group. Now, we can defer this one. I just wanted to leave it on the agenda in case Stephen or Eric, you had anything you wanted to share. I know you met with Lisa in the last month, and but if you're not comfortable speaking up about that, we can save that for next time. Okay, so we'll table item 6. And Arthur, do you have any updates you'd like to offer on the waste topic area?
Not at this time. Jack and I are planning to look at an inventory of affiliate groups for meetings. To date, it looks like 2 things pop out. One is resources external to the town of Milton. We have had a conference call with a resource that Jack knows, and she's been extraordinarily helpful. And there have been a number of nationally related presentations that we participated in as well. We have also met with, and I think we reported out on this earlier, I apologize if this is repetitive, DPW Chair Chase Berkeley, Director Chase Berkeley, and identified a couple of areas for consideration and discussions with him. One of the areas that's very clear for incorporation in a subsequent report will be communication and how Milton can improve communications about waste management input and provide a highway for residents to get in to provide their own input to waste management relative to suggestions and so on down the line. That's it for now, right? Jack, do you have anything to add?
Not at this time, no. Hopefully after June 30th, we'll be able to work a little harder, more focused.
Can you confirm that Milton residents still want their waste collected
They definitely,
and that they will
a little
talk
bit more,
mechanism?
ideally a little bit more promptly.
Mhm. Well, thank you very much.
There are logistical issues that some of the people are faced with in town, particularly seniors, but some non-seniors as well, relative to participating in waste management events. The location of the DPW yard is a barrier for some people, not because of the yard, but because of its location, as I mentioned, namely Randolph Avenue. Getting in is not so much of a problem, but getting out is a major problem.
There might be two birds with one stone opportunities around traffic calming on Randolph, reducing transportation emissions, and being able to get in and out without fearing for your life. As a,
Is your group gonna look into how much of what is supposed to be recycled is being recycled?
Yes, and we also, I should mention that Jack and I participated in a Town of Milton recycling audit with Waste Management in Avon at the end of February, beginning of March. And Jack, I don't know if they provided a report yet, but we can include that in what's forthcoming after June 30th or after the 1st of July. We can be doing some, by that, I mean, the town of Milton can be doing some improving because it lost a couple of points between its last audit and this most recent audit in terms of the quality of the recycling materials.
recall at our last meeting, there was some confusion as to whether we had improved or,
I think it was the opposite.
okay. Well, that's unfortunate. Yeah. Shows the importance of being really clear about defining what positive and negative mean. Reading the spreadsheet. Excellent. Thank you, Arthur.
By the way, I just want to add that the Waste Management was an outstanding host. They contributed all the personnel, all the time that we needed. They answered every single question. Their work was extremely thorough, and the results were as would be expected from that type of thorough work on our behalf.
So what goes into a recycling audit? Is it just grab a big sample of material and sort it by hand?
Yeah. They weighed out the whole load versus the what was trash for any contamination.
I learned this year that black plastic is never recyclable because the machines can't. They're like optical machines.
Oh, wow.
You can't. I don't know if that's true everywhere. I mean, I think part of the problem is that it depends on what equipment your particular hauler is using, and they have different limitations.
And they're upgrading their technology at Waste Management too. And we saw some of their state-of-the-art, recently installed equipment. And boy, it's amazing how fast that works.
Does recycling go to waste management facilities or someplace else?
Yeah.
Where are those?
I believe it's in Avon, sorry. And they turn around, they take the product and then turn around and create, a new product, right there on site.
Do they take our solid waste as well? Or is that a different company?
No, that's a different company. So,
Is that Sunrise Scavenger?
Sunrise is the haulers. We bring it to a transfer station, which then gets brought to Covanta Energy. I forget the exact location of it, but it's South Shore. And that is is burned and generate energy right now.
So much chicken. Okay, so unless there's objections, I will move us on to topic 8. Discussion of AI-generated climate action plan goals and actions inventory. This is a kind of, I'm a data scientist in my day job and been anxious about to what extent artificial intelligence can replace me. And so looking for opportunities to kind of test test it on a more challenging use case, and decided a challenge that I've had working on the climate action plan is we have dozens of existing climate action plans from towns in the region as a resource for our work, but they're all provided in sort of nicely formatted PDF files intended for human consumption, and some of them are fairly light on detail. Some of them are just bursting with specific action items. But like sifting through them and slicing and dicing, saying like, what are all the towns near us doing on, building electrification? There's no like easy way to get that information without spending hours and hours sifting through climate action plans. And I just personally, I didn't have the patience to do more than 2 or 3 before giving up. And so I won't bore you guys with the details, but I use the OpenAI large language models and some open source software tools to do data extraction. You can feed a PDF into the AI tool, so several pages at a time, and say, please find the goals, actions, and strategies contained herein, and give me back a table with some metadata. And so that is linked in the draft agenda that I shared earlier. Maybe I can share my screen quickly so folks can see it.
Yeah. Is it the consolidated actions?
Well, you're not going to want to, maybe.
You should be able to.
I'd rather do it on my computer because I was starting to set up a filter. So let me just find my.
You should be able to stream.
I'm trying to. Anyway, I can't find my Zoom window. I can build an AI, but I can't find my Zoom window. What's that? There. Share screen. Oh, the host has disabled participant screen share.
Oh. I don't think I did.
I can email you the link alternatively.
It's not allowing me to. change it.
Okay, so let's go, plan B is you can open up the spreadsheet. Actually, let me send you the link, if you could open it and, can you reach Google Sheets?
Yes.
Can you share your screen?
Yes. Delete these.
It's not in OneDrive, it's Google Drive.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah. All right, let's just, expand it, yeah. I can do that. All right, it moved to a different. Let's try again. All right, folks, thanks for bearing with us. How do I get this to go away? Um, all right, so I'm basically wanted to make you guys aware of this as a resource. So forget like how it was generated, except for the fact that everything you've heard in the media about AI is kind of true. It's like amazing, but also is a little bit like um, a college intern who won't admit error. Right? So if you ask it a question, it'll give you an answer, and so you have to be a little bit uh, suspicious. But I think that doesn't matter too much for our use case because really my point in putting this together was as a like a brainstorming resource. So you can ask what are all the other towns doing, and I asked it to categorize the actions. It did it a little inconsistently. Sometimes B, sometimes buildings, but B is for buildings. So I can just look at the buildings actions. I could go and filter it to a few towns. Just let's say what are Cambridge and doing, and then go look at what they've got here. So some of these are really vague, and that's true of some of these climate action plans, and some of them are really specific, and wouldn't apply to Milton directly, but I think useful for generating ideas. And then, so the summary description produced by the AI is here under description. I also asked the AI to cite its source, right? So as a way of, if we see something that seems a little funny or we have more questions about it and we want more context, I asked it to verbatim quote the content that it used to identify the action, including the page number. So you've got over here a page and a document URL where the full climate action plan could be downloaded. So if you wanted to sort of follow up on, let's see, what is it? Brookline has decided that they're going to establish a streamlined and fast-tracked permitting process, as well as reduced or eliminated fees for new construction and major renovations that include renewable energy or energy efficiency features. If you wanted to dive deeper on that, we could go download this plan, but not from Town Hall. And look at page 3. And then, if you look at page 3 and it's not there, then maybe the AI made it up. So, but high level, this exists. It's got, let me X out of this filter view. Whoops. This is 2,437 separate actions. And 617 goals. And what I told the AI to look for in differentiating goals from actions is the quantifiability. So it should have, and it wasn't consistent about quantified and time bound. So if it saw a target date and preferably a percentage or quantitative outcome, would call that a goal. So hopefully this is useful. I think we're getting to a spot where we should go from our key actions to a more sort of comprehensive listing. Hopefully this is a useful resource in moving that direction. Any questions or comments?
So if we entered the word waste management or conservation lands, we could get a listing of all the towns that have that.
Yes, well, you could get all the actions they have that the AI thought were conservation related.
Oh,
I felt like it was pretty
No,
good. Yeah, so it was a little inconsistent in how it tagged them that you could see. It's either like waste or W, transportation or T. Z was for zoning, I think. That's the thing that's funny about AI versus the kind of software automation we're increasingly used to is it goes rogue a little bit. Comes up with its own way of doing things, just like a person, but not quite.
It's like public health
Yeah,
is the only other.
yeah. So like I gave it a list of categories that did not include public health. So, yeah, but here's some public health ones. So, kind of cool.
how do we access this?
It's linked from the draft agenda I sent out last week, but I will follow up with an email where the subject line is action and goal inventory, so that you can find it. And feel free to ask me questions if and when you try to use it. Happy to assist in any way I can. Okay, any questions or comments before we move on? All right. So the next topic is a discussion of the itreecanopy.org tool. Ron, did you actually put this on?
No.
Somebody did. I sent an email around last week because I was reading, I think, Weston's climate action plan and noticed that in their conservation chapter, they had done a baseline assessment of tree canopy cover throughout the entire town using this tool. And it's you said, I think the Shade Tree Committee was doing an approach with satellite data. So that's what this is. Basically, itreecanopy.org is a website where you can define an area of interest, and it has the boundaries for all towns. But I think you can also define a custom one. So if we wanted to expand from Milton proper to Milton plus surrounding conservation areas, I think that would be possible.
Yeah.
And then it just picks an ongoing random sample of latitude, longitude coordinates within that region, shows you a satellite photo with a crosshair in the middle, and says, is this tree canopy? Is it herbaceous? Is it non-porous? Like there's a sort of five-way categorization that you're asked to do, and you just go on and on, as long as you can stand it. You could get multiple people doing it and combine their work, but you basically get a and I included a PDF with the report that came out of it. But it gives you, Milton is X% tree canopy. So
Yeah, I
I
think
think-
the fellow from Shade Tree is gonna do this for Blue Hills.
So, I mean, I definitely have questions, like, for the sake of what, right? It seems clearly useful, but I couldn't quite articulate why yet. And then there's the question I had is, okay, it's showing me a satellite photo, but from when? Right? So, like, if we want to track this over time,
Yeah,
can it do that?
Yeah.
That would be another question.
yeah,
But that's more important than Weston, because Weston is based on 2 acre zoning. So everybody has 2 acres of land, and most people maybe have lawn in 20% of it and have the rest natural. So that the question of how much tree is on all this property becomes much more important there than a town like Milton, where it's mostly 1/4 acre to 1/2 acre zoning, and then you have some larger estates, but it's a very different geography. So I can see why Weston would want to know that. But I don't think it applies as much to here.
Well, I think it's come up before. I think Maggie, you've asked the question. What's the state of our sort of tree cover, not just on conservation land, but on privately owned parcels throughout town? And that, of course, has climate
yes, yeah,
mitigation value as
Right.
well. We've talked about what, if anything, we could do to encourage the healthy management of private properties from an environmental perspective.
And not just private properties, but town-owned properties.
Private, town-owned, conservation, like all of it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the conservation. So my big issue is we understand what goes into conservation, and we think it's in perpetuity, but we've come to find out it's not in perpetuity. So my biggest concern, I've been in town for 55 years. And I have seen the loss of canopy and tree coverage all around town and on every corner in town. And to me, that is what my biggest concern is because we're so close to Boston, Milton's going to be annexed by Boston. And maybe that's an overstatement of concern, but it really isn't, to be honest. And so I really maybe, and I don't know if this tool can help us, but to go back and see what our tree canopy was just 5 years ago. And it's going to become less as everyone is subdividing. As I said, our zoning bylaws were in place in 1938. And if everybody took advantage of what we're allowed to do as of right, Tim, our town planner, has said our population can grow from currently 28,000 people to 60,000 people if everyone takes advantage. And if you're driving around town now, you can see people are taking advantage because, real estate is so high. You just go on Central Ave and, those 2 pieces of property have been decimated. The trees have just been decimated. Randolph Ave, the 40B's going on. So I do think it's really important to preserve what we have. And it is a fine line. You have your property rights, but having a tree of significant size or a cluster of trees that provide habitat for pollinators and animals, each individual tree might not be significant, but the cluster of trees can be highly significant. And that's my biggest concern is conservation is there to protect, but our town-owned land is not protected. And working with the Shade Tree Committee, I do think we need to come up with a more robust tree canopy and at least put a pause, if there's a 12-inch caliper maple on someone's backyard, they might have the right to take it down, but maybe it should be paused and we should have a discussion as to what the impacts would be of that loss of that size tree. And, beech trees are being impacted. We do get inspected by the Department of Agricultural Resources every year. And, when the inspector comes out, I always have conversations with him, and he is concerned about the beech tree loss that's going on now. And, we've been very fortunate as a town. We've got really old beech trees.
Those are the nematode infestations that.
And so that will be a great loss. And we should, when a beech tree comes down, we should have a plan as to what it's going to be replaced with. Obviously we can't replace a 100-year-old beech tree, but we should have a plan as to what should go there. So that's my concern is, every little corner in town is kind of under threat. That's my concern. So I'd be just interested to know if this tool can go back and
It's had its hand raised for a while, so we'll go next.
and then we have an increase in our CO2 emissions. What's the correlation between the two?
Arthur?
I think you're on mute. Continue. Thanks.
Just a couple of quick thoughts, and this one came through when we were having the meeting with Ron 2 weeks ago, and that is when we're talking about shade tree canopies, it might be wise for us to adjust for the Blue Hills. In other words, have two statistics or benchmarks. One is one with the Blue Hills, one without the Blue Hills. That's a very large encompassment. It's 2.7 square miles of the town of Milton, over which essentially the town of Milton has no control. There's input, but that's the state. So a factor analysis on everything outside of that would be helpful. To Maggie's point, replication planning would be wonderful. There are opportunities to identify lands where lost tree coverage, like at a 40B site, might be replicated at someplace else in town, but we have to have a plan for that. We have to have time, personnel, and resources to identify those and ways in which they can be implemented. The second one is I want to allay Maggie's fear about Boston. If I remember my state and local government correctly, after the annexation of Hyde Park, Boston was essentially legislated out of the expansion market. It has no place to go.
Thank you for that.
So I think Fred Taylor, who's the person from the Shade Tree Committee, is going to do a canopy study of the entire town. And I'll mention Arthur's point about trying to break it down into Blue Hills and non-Blue Hills. And we've also gotten a map from Alan Bishop in the Department of Public Works who maps out the lands of the entire town of Milton. So Fred is working on that.
And I think he does a impermeable surface inventory for stormwater,
For the
stormwater tax collection purposes
Oh,
on a regular basis. Is
Oh.
it annual?
Yeah, he looks at it, updates it every year. Yeah.
Just looking at this task as a data scientist, the pointing and clicking, like, what is this? What is this? What is this? I mean, that's absolutely something that machine learning can automate and scale up. I'd be surprised if there isn't a more modern version of this tool around where you don't have to do the pointing and clicking. And then it would be much more feasible to slice and dice it in a lot of different ways, because we have, parcel level maps where you could filter the town by all sorts of different attributes to get a baseline of free capital coverage. And I guess the question is, on what time granularity are these satellite photos available? I've heard that Google Earth is like pretty granular, so that is just a question of access. What does it cost? And has somebody already packaged up so that it's not expensive to do it?
it doesn't tell you the types of trees, right?
What can be determined from satellite photos? Probably something. But now I'm starting to spit. Arthur, is that a new hand raise?
No, I should have taken it down.
Do you mind if I share my screen real quick?
Oh, go ahead.
So I'm going to show real quick. This is a mapping software that we use, that the GIS department, Alan Bishop, uses. So we do have the tools available.
Yeah, he must have at least annual.
Yeah, so this can
frequency
go.
piece.
So this is last year, July 17th. We'll zoom out. I just wanted to zoom in so you can see the different layers. That essentially this is just the same as ArcGIS, but it has this base layer of satellite imagery. Here you can see October 23, and here's April 10th, 2024, and I'm actually not sure how far this goes back, but I was looking at 2020 the other day. So we do have tools.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
It would be nice to have a little more resources devoted towards using it for the purposes of this committee.
Yeah. I think Fred is in touch with Alan.
Yep, and he was actually in the engineering office yesterday.
Oh,
Or Monday.
I love the sound of this. Great. Things are rolling, moving forward. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Any more points on this topic? I hear thunder. Ominous. All right. Well, then we'll move on to the final topic before public comment, which is just to take a moment to acknowledge the outgoing committee members, most of whom are not here. John, you can represent them morally. It's been 12 months already since we started meeting, and I think we all feel like we're still getting our feet under us, but this is an enormous topic, and I'm really proud of the work we've managed to accomplish together, and really enjoyed working with all of you. And I do hope that members who are not seeking reappointment, will continue to be part of the climate action community in Milton. We'll be in touch. So John, thank you. And I always freak out. I'm going to forget somebody that we owe thanks to Mary Ronadakis and Tracy Dyke Redmond. And help me out, guys. So Lisa is not, hopefully not rolling off, or she hasn't been reappointed yet. She would like to be.
Oh, okay.
The process is still continuing.
Yeah.
Anybody I'm forgetting?
Well, thank you for your leadership and filling in for Tracy, who was.
That was stressful.
I just add to Ron's comment to say that during the past year, Alex, you've moved from being a very reluctant co-chair to a very able chair.
Yes.
But still reluctant. If we get a new appointee who's more comfortable in this kind of role, totally open to.
You're doing very well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. Well, again, thank you to all the outgoing and continuing committee members. I'm excited to work with people who will hopefully be appointed soon. You probably all saw my email, but there was one new member appointed at last night's select board meeting. Our high school member, Reagan Gilmore.
Oh,
Very excited. I got a chance to meet with her on Zoom a few weeks ago, and she's very passionate about environmental issues and also an ultra marathon.
whoa.
She's got some energy. So really looking forward to having her.
I have a question, which might not be relevant, but this past week, in the Globe, there was an article that the major piece of climate legislation has been stalled. Some people in the state house, I think it was Republicans, but I'm not sure, put the kibosh on the governor's climate plan. So I was just wondering whether it's appropriate for us to, if that's true, to support the passage of the plan in some way. Do you know anything about it?
And no, something like that. I think I BCC'd most of you on a letter I sent to Senator Timilty.
Yeah, I saw that. But that's not the same.
It may not. There's a lot going on, so I'm not sure if I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'll look up the article.
High level, I would say, I think their legislative session ends in July. Probably a lot of the action will happen before we are to meet again and do anything formally as a committee. I'd certainly encourage you all as concerned individuals and constituents to engage elected officials on your own, as yourself. You certainly all have a relevant perspective and the benefit from you.
Okay.
But yes, it's another big update to the legislative framework around trying to resolve some of the challenges around permitting needed renewable energy infrastructure. Trying to avoid massive investments in expanding natural gas infrastructure while we're supposed to be ramping off of it.
Right.
It's a tough. I don't think it's one where you could just have a knee-jerk environmentalist position because I don't think we'd have a comfortable winter next year if we didn't have if the natural gas infrastructure we currently depend on stopped working. All right. So,
Chair,
That's-
if I may,
yes,
Alex, just suggest that we give a nod of recognition to Jack for his work during this past year.
thank you, Jay.
Thank you, guys.
Yes,
Yeah.
and hopefully you'll still be with us for next term, right?
Yes, sure.
No surprises there. Right.
What happens after June 30?
Oh, it's the new fiscal year.
Oh, I see.
There's a lot of stuff coming to a
Yes.
head.
Excellent. Yes, thank you so much, Jack.
I wish I could do more.
I think we all do. Not that you could do more, but that we could all do. Just clone myself a few times. So with that, let's open it up for public comments. Is there anybody who would like to?
Stephen Lyric?
Seeing head shaking. All right. Then, seeing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, Jonathan, motion to adjourn, Ron has seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
It looks unanimous.
Do we have a date for our next meeting?
I think I will follow up with that offline because we only have 5 seats filled at 11. I
Okay,
hope that before the next meeting, more of those appointments will be finalized and then, help to accommodate their schedules.
okay.
Theoretically, it's July 18th, Thursday.
Well, thanks everybody on Zoom for dialing in and, we'll see you in email land.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.